Welcome back. Ratings agency Moody's may be leaning towards not downgrading South Africa. It says the probability of a credit rating downgrade for the country is about a third. Well, that's the view of Moody's officials at an annual conference currently underway in Johannesburg. Let's try and get the latest now from Francis Hurd, who's been at that gathering. And Francis, dare I ask, what is the mood at the Moody's conference?
Well, Devon, this is quite a serious conference for investors, so a bit somber, a lot of technical, financial analysis. Really what's going on around the conference, rather, today in reports is speculation about how Moody's will deal with South Africa. Now, remember, Moody's rates us 2 notches above sub-investment or junk status, but with a negative outlook. One of the analysts being quoted earlier today saying there's now a less than 50% chance that we will be downgraded. But let's explore this with Kristen Lindau, a former lead analyst for South Africa from Moody's. Kristen, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
What is the chance, everybody wants to know, of us being downgraded?
Well, we have a negative outlook in place, and that means that the balance of risks is more to the downside than to the upside. So, but that does not necessarily mean that a downgrade will be decided in the near term. It's basically just acknowledging the downside risks that are present.
Can we say more than 50, less than 50, anything like that?
Well, I would say less than 50%, okay. Yes.
Since the last review, when we were placed on that negative outlook, and I think there was no change earlier this year, what's deteriorated? What's improved in South Africa?
Okay, we've seen, one of the things that we were looking for was for the materialization of the reform commitments that government had put in place with both with business and unions, things that it set itself goals to complete by the end of the year. And we've seen we've seen partial completion of some of those. One, the government has stuck to its fiscal consolidation plans. 2, it has made the initial steps towards addressing problems in the state-owned enterprises. It's just replaced the board, with the exception of the chairman at SAA, for example. It's made very clear under what conditions it would provide new guarantees to SOEs, so that's important. But some of the key measures, I think, are still pending, and those would have to do with labor market liberalization in particular, things like secret ballots being reintroduced into the picture when strikes have been called, and more clarity around the other mechanisms by which strikes can be avoided.
You did mention the investigation into our finance minister in the last quarterly review. What's Moody's stance on that? Is there major concern around that?
Well, what we're concerned about is if policy continuity would be assured and if the current finance minister was removed. It's not about, our judgments aren't about single individuals in most cases, and this is no different.
If he was to go, so you can't comment on what that would mean, would you look at what it means for that policy certainty?
Absolutely. The issue is about whether the policies that he has been following would be continued by his successor. Similar to when he took over in December, when he recommitted to the policies of former Finance Minister Nene.
Are you watching 2 major developments in South Africa, and what do they mean for our rating downgrade, for our rating rather? 1, the fees must fall movement playing out right now. 2, the debate around nuclear energy.
Okay, the fees must fall movement, of course, has fiscal repercussions. And so far in the budget that was announced in February, the government made room for the commitments to not to raise fees over the next 3 years. That said, of course, the fees must fall means that that there's ambition to lower the fees further or even eliminate them. And that would create a big budget gap. So I think what it means is that the government, if it decided to go along with the protesters' wishes, then it would need to find that money within its overall spending ceiling.
All right, we have to wrap it there, but thank you so much for your time. Kristen Lindau, former lead analyst for South Africa, and as you heard there, Devin, perhaps we can just cling to that little bit of hope today that there's less than 50% chance, but Moody's and the other rating agencies still have us in their sights.